So Manoj, welcome to today's Campus Charcha. It's great to have you. And I'd like to welcome all the viewers today and later, if you're watching live or if you are going to see a recording of this. Uh, Manoj, it's always great to be chatting with you. You have such vast experience. For those of you who don't already know, Manoj is the Vice Chancellor of BML Munjal University. But he's played a leadership role also before this when he spent a little over 5 years at uh, Punjab Engineering College, which is also now a university. It's called PEC University now, Manoj, right?
It's
And
PEC deemed university.
deemed university. But PEC was also your alma mater, right? You did your undergraduate there.
Yes. I graduated from there in 1984 in civil engineering.
So that must be quite special to go back there as the head of the institution after so many years.
Yeah, in fact, Pramath, when I was at IIT Roorkee and I was Dean Academic Affairs there, suddenly on my tables somebody put me an advertisement, and I saw that and just heard started vibrating. So I thought, let's apply there, and fortunately I got through, and it was a good tenure, I believe. When you serve your alma mater, things happen by heart.
Yes, there must be a lot of heart in it.
Yes.
But Manoj has had a really distinguished career. You are basically a civil engineer, right, to start with, and then a master's and a PhD from Swansea, a postdoc at Syracuse, and then a long career at IIT Roorkee, which of course was always been the stronghold of civil engineering in our country.
True.
Today we are going to talk about multidisciplinary learning and how to make that happen. And I'm sure that you've spent a lot of time thinking about that now that you are at Munjal, where I know you all are doing many disciplines and also approaching it in a very interdisciplinary and multidisciplinary fashion. In fact, one of the things I'd love to get you to help us understand is the difference between multi and interdisciplinary. But before we go there, to your mind, Manoj, why is this important? Why is this important now, and why is this important for the future for our students?
So, Pramath, I'll start with a quote from Steve Jobs, and Steve Jobs everybody knows. He said when he was defining design, right? He said it's a technology married with liberal arts and married with the humanities that yields results that makes our hearts sing. Now, this tells the complete story when we say, why do we have to be multidisciplinary in our approach? Uh, you know, India is one of the largest world economies and a huge land of huge resources, natural resources, and with the highest demographic dividend uh, and excellent talent within the country. But still, we rank 50s in 50s in Global Innovation Index in 2019, a report which was published by Cornell and the UN World Intellectual Property Organization. Uh, And I was also reading a report of World Bank which said that 2/3 of our research comes from R&D institutions in the country. 1/4 comes from public and private sector industries, and less than 3% from the universities.
Hmm.
So seriously, the very basic premise that innovations emerge from the university system that are adopted by the industries has been neglected in our country. And the research and innovations which do not lead to transfer of knowledge from universities to the society and are not aligned with the national problems, I believe these are irrelevant and not to be pursued. So university research in India has been very, 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 very narrow, I would say. If you look at the western part of the world, the researchers from different disciplines, they work together. So medical practitioners will collaborate with people in mathematics, statistics, computer science, social science, and work together on a problem which has a potential to become a technology for the future and contribute towards the social and economic development. Now, let me give you a classic example of the chemist Willard Libby, who he was a chemist and who discovered radiocarbon dating, applied his findings in chemistry to the discipline of archaeology, and won the Nobel Prize for the discovery in 1960s. So all the problems will have science, engineering, humanities, social science, and management and technology before it is rolled out as a solution to the society. So Pramath, when we know that all the society relevant problems to be solved would require expertise from different diverse areas, many diverse areas, then why don't we practice it? You know, IITs, when we say, are our institutes of excellence. And of course, I could see that interdisciplinary things, multidisciplinary things happen there. They have different departments, whether it is humanities, social sciences, languages. I mean, in IIT Kharagpur, you have law also, and now they have opened the School of Medicine and Technology also. So where in these integrated campuses, when several disciplines are there, I think things happen. But somehow, maybe intent is not right. Things are there, but coming back to the importance of multidisciplinary learning, I said we do need people from different disciplines to work together on a particular problem and provide solution to the society. So therefore, I think it is very, very important that we have to have a multidisciplinary mindset in whatever way we want to look at it.
So Manoj, the main thesis then that you are presenting is that problems in real life tend to be multidisciplinary, and to solve them you need multidisciplinary experts or problem solvers, which is what our role as universities is. And that's the main reason. But let me just ask you this, and this is more to seek clarity on the, we often ask our viewers who are joining to send us questions in advance. So I have the liberty of looking at those questions, and a lot of those questions really do seem to suggest that people would really want to understand why. And so if I can push the thinking or ask you to push it a little bit more to say, maybe give some examples. One of the questions people are asking, and maybe they realize that you're a civil engineer. So they are saying, why is it important for civil students? For example, Harshant Pupala, who's at the Siddharth Institute of Technology and Science, he's probably been in an engineering college, and you know these colleges, and they're somewhat like IITs. They're already focused on engineering. So he's asking the question, why do I need to do this? And so if we can go a level deeper, I would also ask you, see, these problems were there before also. And before also they were interdisciplinary. It's not like they have suddenly become interdisciplinary. So what has changed, do you think, that we are all now suddenly saying this is important, this is important?
So now, first question, I have a degree in civil engineering, but if you look at my career itself, right? I completed my degree from Punjab Engineering College, then came to Roorkee, where I started working in the area of remote sensing. And remote sensing at that time was just people had started knowing about remote sensing. And when I started studying that subject, I found that remote sensing is a technique which has applications everywhere. Whether you talk of forestry, environmental science, civil engineering, earth sciences, geology, geophysics, agriculture, you name it, it's there. So that was the first attraction for me to look at the things in many different ways, right? So from there on, I started thinking interdisciplinary and started working in that area. And so much so, then I diversified into, because that dealt with the analysis of satellite data, right? Now, satellite data is digital data. That means digital image processing. Now, digital image processing, again, you talk of pattern recognition and feature extraction and change detection and whatnot, and machine learning, and then thereon. So as you got into that, my application area was civil engineering, but then remote sensing became a discipline for me, which had an interdisciplinary flavor. And so much so now I don't call myself civil engineer. I call myself a computer science professional who has worked in machine learning.
Wow.
Application has been satellite data processing, wherein I have, in fact, when I was at IIT Roorkee, I have taught support vector machines to my students there. So from there to this, so when we say, whenever you work in a particular discipline, I think you have to learn many different subjects, because without that, you are not going to solve any problem. You talk of civil engineering. I mean, if suppose I have to design a dam, right, in a particular area, here I would require land use, land cover information. I was required information on geology, topography, so many things. And all those people, and whenever we talk of any project, people from different disciplines will sit together and do execute that project. So why should not we learn all those things when we are studying? So therefore, it is very important that in our curricula itself, we should be very interdisciplinary. Now, Industry 4.0, when we say, okay, here you are talking of different kinds of skills. You are talking of critical thinking, although people were talking about it, but critical thinking, problem solving, I mean, different perspective, you have to know, you have to become global. So here I think everybody has to study many different subjects. Typically, the breadth of these subjects should be there in all the degree programs, and I think only then I would say people can survive.
Yeah, I think you're making a second important point, or maybe and a third one also. I think you're saying that one is the problems are interdisciplinary or multidisciplinary, which you started with, but now you're saying that, listen, while this may have been true in the past, earlier we used to bring in people from different disciplines and ask them to work together. But now the belief has become, or there's a claim that, hey, why shouldn't everybody have that kind of breadth in their education, instead of us bringing different expertise around, and that everybody should have a little bit of, or at least some depth, some breadth in addition to depth. And you referred to Industry 4.0, and I think that is also a little bit of saying that, in fact, whole new disciplines are getting created, which did not exist before. And therefore, there is a certain need for interdisciplinarity that is being born out of that. I think the natural progression of this is, Manoj, that a number of questions are about how do you do interdisciplinarity in this versus that, and I'll come back to that later. Because there's some interesting examples people have asked, like how do you do this in management, or how do you do this in physical education? So it'll be good to brainstorm those. But let me go back to a very important question that is from a definitional point of view is important to get clarity upfront, which is this question that Smita Matthew is also asking. Sir, could you simplify the differences between the terms multidisciplinary, interdisciplinary, and transdisciplinary? So multi, inter, and trans. Manoj, what is your take on this?
I think it's a very good question, and I think these words are at times quite confusing also.
Yes.
And we should have clarity on these terms. Let me start with first intradisciplinary. So intra means working within a single discipline. And I'll give you some examples also of multi and interdisciplinary as well. When we say interdisciplinary, basically it is the integration of knowledge and methods from different disciplines using a real synthesis of approaches. So it basically analyzes, synthesizes, and harmonizes links between disciplines into a coordinated and coherent plot. There is another term which is cross-disciplinary, which is viewing one discipline from the perspective of another.
That one I had forgotten. Yes, cross-disciplinary. Yes.
And then there is multidisciplinary, and as you rightly said, that where people from different disciplines working together, each drawing on their disciplinary knowledge or intradisciplinary knowledge. So it draws on the knowledge from different disciplines, but stays within their own boundaries. Right? Whereas transdisciplinary, it's basically creating a unity of intellectual frameworks beyond the disciplinary perspective. So transdisciplinary integrates the natural, social, and health sciences, for example, in a humanities context and go beyond their traditional boundaries. So these are, I think, very thin line differences are there, but we need to understand this before we start practicing this. Now, so for this particular talk, let us restrict ourselves only to multi and interdisciplinary. Yeah.
So Manoj, just Abha Singh is asking if you could give some examples. I think people do struggle with this. So let's take a few minutes for you to think through some good examples for them to really grasp the differences.
So since we typically talk of multi and interdisciplinary, let me give you some examples also on this and take it from there, right? So again, I'm repeating here that multidisciplinary learning and research happens when faculty from different disciplines work independently on a common problem. The faculty shares their research goals and work on the same problem, but look at from their own discipline's perspective. Now, that is multidisciplinary. Now, at times when research needs things to go deeper and go a step farther than multiple disciplines, then the interdisciplinary research happens. Now, let us take an example to clear this. When we say a project such as a student project such as Nuna Solar Car, and you know Nuna is a name of a series of manned solar powered race cars that have won the World Solar Challenge in Australia. This is a series which happens in Australia, which is a multidisciplinary project with the students coming from different areas. They will come together and contribute to a common project based upon their disciplines. And then on the other hand, let's say there is an academic program which is called nanobiology, right? A branch of biology which deals with nanoscale biological interactions, which is a interdisciplinary field between physics and biology, right? So it becomes an interdisciplinary academic program. So the discipline learning is within one academic discipline. Multiple discipline research is setting the goals under one umbrella, and interdisciplinary is a cross-disciplinary thing which is leading to the development of an integrated knowledge. One more thing I would like to emphasize here, that what is considered interdisciplinary today may become disciplinary in future.
Right.
So you may be aware that nanosciences, these geospatial sciences, environmental sciences, all had been interdisciplinary at one point of time. But
Correct.
now they have become disciplinary. Now, I mean, when we were studying and earlier to our days, when we used to talk about engineering, there were two engineerings: military engineering and civil engineering.
Mm-hmm.
And from there, various other engineering branches came up: electrical, mechanical, electronics, computer science, and whatnot. Now, at that time, electrical engineering used to study several civil engineering subjects, and civil engineering students used to study many electrical engineering subjects. So gradually what happened, that all these interdisciplinary branches became disciplinary branches later on. So now when you are talking of, so that's what I'm trying to say. It's when you go deeper into a set of disciplines, then you eventually create a new discipline also out of that. So I hope these examples will make things clear.
Yes, and maybe I can also throw you some of my examples and see if they make sense. So one example that I can think of immediately, Manoj, is that when I did my PhD, my degree says mechanical engineering. My undergraduate degree was in metallurgical engineering. My PhD advisor was actually a computer scientist, specialized computer scientist. Now, the area that I worked in was robotics. And so, to me, that was a true interdisciplinary subject or area at that time. Today, robotics can also be seen to be a discipline in itself. Some places have it as a discipline, but even today it is fairly interdisciplinary. Even in those days in our lab, there would be systems engineers, electrical engineers, computer scientists, mechanical engineers, all working together and trying to build robots or solve problems in robotics. So robotics to me was clearly an new interdisciplinary area, which was a melting pot, if you will, of all these disciplines. And over time, it emerged as a new discipline. Was that a good example of interdisciplinarity, you think?
Yes, I think your journey is similar to my journey.
Right.
When I say so, my PhD advisor was a geographer, right?
Correct.
I was coming from civil engineering background. He was a geographer, and we are utilizing neural network and fuzzy set theories at that time in early 90s to solve a problem of land use land cover mapping, which was a completely geographic problem and a national level problem, wherein you create maps of different themes, whether it is a forestry maps, ecological maps, all those stuff. So what I'm trying to say is that this is what is really interdisciplinary.
Right. Wonderful. And multidisciplinary would be, if I can give an example of, for example, at Ashoka University, we have a degree in economics and history.
Mm-hmm.
Would you say that that is a multidisciplinary major? Or is that an example of interdisciplinary major? I hope I'm not confusing people, but I'm just doing it deliberately to get clarity for all of us.
So let me put it this way. If it is a kind of dual degree, it would be a multidisciplinary degree.
Yes.
Yeah. Of course. Yeah.
Yes. So my idea there was to illustrate that you would need to do a minimum set of courses in history.
Yeah.
And a minimum set of courses in economics.
Yeah.
And then you would be given a degree which would give you the equivalence of a dual degree. You may have some cross-listed courses, so the total may not be the sum of the parts, but in some senses you have specialization in both areas. Or you would make a team of people who has an economist, a historian, a sociologist, a philosopher, a psychologist, and that would be called a multidisciplinary team.
Say, for example, a degree in environmental sciences, now people call it interdisciplinary, could be interdisciplinary at one point of time. Biophysics, these are all integrated kind of interdisciplinary degrees. Yeah.
Right, right. Okay, let's move on from this idea of, I think you've also already talked about your own journey and your own motivation for going into this. Tell us a little bit about how do you now implement this, and what are practical ways of making this happen. Now, obviously, a lot of your examples are from engineering, but so we could start with that in engineering, how have you seen this implemented? And then maybe across engineering, management, and other disciplines, other specializations like you are doing at Munjal University. So any thoughts on how to make it happen?
So, Pramad, I think we have to look at this very holistically.
Right.
It's not just that suddenly I decide that I want to become interdisciplinary, or I want to have an interdisciplinary degree, or I want to practice interdisciplinary learning. I think you need to create an environment around that. And when you talk about, when you say how to implement it, I think a complete mindset and the environment has to be, mindset has to be changed and the environment has to be created. Now, so let's look at this as a kind of problem, right? And see how this can be solved and implemented, right? Okay. So let me start with, if some university wants to become multidisciplinary or interdisciplinary, wants to start interdisciplinary from, it starts from the vision of the university. As simple as that, right? And I'll give you step by step how it can flow down the ladder. So for example, the vision of our university is to nurture ethical leaders who are skilled, knowledgeable, and have the life skills required for leading their organizations to success. Mm-hmm. Now, if you pick up any word here, without multidisciplinarity, without interdisciplinarity, I cannot create leaders. I have to have people coming from different backgrounds to teach, to make them, to prepare them. And similarly, I have to have a curricular design in such a fashion that they become the leaders, right? Now, once I'm clear that what is my vision, the vision needs to be translated into action, which I think...
Just before you go from vision to action, and I'm sorry to interrupt, but again, this is to help you get clarity. Isn't it true that leaders need to focus on a particular area and to specialize in a particular area to be real experts and really knowledgeable and specialist? Are you saying that everybody should be a jack of all trades? Is that the direction in which multidisciplinarity is taking us? How would you reconcile that?
No, I don't think, again, see, these two words are not very much people use interchangeably: multidisciplinary, interdisciplinary, cross-disciplinary. So that confusion will always remain. But what I meant here was
the leadership point that you are making. I just want you to clarify it more. Of course, I agree with you, but I want for the audience to understand why leaders need to be that way.
Yeah, so when we say leaders in a particular profession, right? When for example, if somebody is pursuing a degree in, for example, again, engineering, right? And we want to create leaders in engineering profession. Now, if those people have to lead an engineering project, there I think they need to know, besides their own discipline, they need to know things from other disciplines as well, right? So it could be depth given to a particular discipline, depth of knowledge given to a particular discipline, but breadth of knowledge in other disciplines will also be required. And on top of it, the skills set, as I said, the critical reasoning, problem solving, soft skills, communication skills. So that is another bouquet of
yes.
things. So my courses need to be designed in such a manner that they study these things. Percentage of disciplinary or interdisciplinary could vary from one program to the other program. But I think if we are not doing it, probably, I mean, I have seen still now in old IITs also, still they are very, very traditional, conventional. I mean, if I am sitting in a civil engineering board of studies, and if there is something, some new subjects from other disciplines are to be introduced, there will be a lot of resistance, because people's mindsets are like that no, civil engineering means this civil engineering. Now, if you see now, for example, these days, I was looking at the data of higher education. I mean, nobody's opting for civil engineering. Now, civil engineering education has changed drastically, dramatically, which has to have inputs from computer science, machine learning. I mean, you think of any other thing, robotics also, when we say IoT also, sensors and all those stuff. Are we teaching that kind of civil engineering to our students or not? So that means we have, if we want to develop, create leaders in a particular disciplines, they have to be, they have to have knowledge from other disciplines. Otherwise,
So
they will
Manoj,
not be relevant.
you started to touch on this, and Vijay Dev Bhaktuni is asking a very relevant question to that. He just asked that, how do you bring faculty from different disciplines together to build truly interdisciplinary academic degree program, knowing that faculty typically have lots of inertia to change, and you know this better than anyone else. So any practical tips on how you have tried to get people to change their view?
Okay, I'll certainly answer that. But again, let's go back to the looking at interdisciplinary implementation on that holistically. How can we do that?
We were talking about that. Yeah, please go.
So maybe once the vision is clear, then the role of governing body is also very, very important. Now, if in the governing body, if people are sitting from different disciplines there, right, they would really mean business there, right? So they would be after the vice chancellor that, hey, we want these things to happen. So once that happens, the leader himself or herself, if he is practicing multidisciplinarity, that will make a huge difference when it comes down to infrastructure and faculty. In fact, so the mindset I'm saying. So if the leader is very clear that yes, this has a merit and this has to be implemented, it can happen. So, for example, when you develop physical and soft infrastructure, even naming of the infrastructure, which look interdisciplinary, will also have an impact. The ambience of the university will also have an impact on that. And coming back to now question of Professor Vijay Bhaktuni, and I think I know him. He is from Purdue somewhere. I had the chance to interact with him at some point of time. So, faculty is the most important pillar of an academic institution. Now, what is happening in India, unfortunately, barring few institutions, the desired academic freedom is not given to the faculty due to rigid regulations, both from the regulators at the country level and governance at the university level. There has been a significant change, no doubt. But what is happening because of that, faculty are busy in working towards adequate number of research papers and keeping an eye on managing their API scores without focusing on a real productive research. And this is happening. And I don't blame them, because our recruitment and promotion rules are so tight that they have, literally killed their thinking abilities. So, I give an example. When I was in my earlier institution, if I had to hire a faculty, right, who has a civil engineering background in the computer science department, I would not be allowed to do that. Right. Yeah. Okay. And it's happening in many colleges. Right. But if you are clear, if you are visionary, you can do things. So what I did here, I said, when I joined BML Munjal University, I said there is no civil engineering, there is no mechanical engineering, there is one school of engineering and technology, which will have sciences, which will have basic sciences, applied sciences, engineering professionals. Everybody would be there. And I just removed those boundaries. You are a part of a school of engineering and technology.
No departments.
No departments. There won't be any head of the department. Now, as soon as you start calling a person as head of the department again, he will become very narrow. So you just need to change that environment. So much so, Pramad, what we have done, faculty offices we have housed in one single floor of a 4-story building. 100 faculty members sit here there from all across disciplines, engineering, management, law, economics, commerce. They would sit together and will bump into each other. And then cafeterias are there on the same floor, sit there and start practicing multidisciplinary there itself, interdisciplinary there itself. Right. So things can change, things can be implemented. I think I am able to answer Professor Vijay's question.
Yeah, I think what you're saying is that right from the vision to the governing body, to the head of the institution, to the way you set up offices, to the way you set up the structures where you do away with the departments, it all has to be thought through consistently. Earlier, the model was very much that, oh, please do some courses. When I went to IIT, it was like, please do some courses in humanities and social sciences also, right? And so it was always, if you were interested, then of course you took interest in other areas. But if you were not, then this was more an imposition or a requirement ki karna hi hai, so you have to somehow do it. But it was not something that you were very motivated to see as a requirement of the breadth of knowledge that will help you be a leader or help you solve real problems in the future.
So and you know, Pramad, what I did, we revise our curricula also. That is also very important.
Yes, that was the next level. I was coming to that. I will talk about that a little bit. How does it feel to the student in terms of what they are experiencing? I think that will allow us to get to the discussion about curricula also. Please go ahead.
So again, as I said, environment has to be built, and it has to come. Come from the top right up to the student level.
Yes.
Right. Because we want to create leaders. So it has to come from the top till the last mile. When we talk of curricula, what we did, and in fact, I took this. I looked at IIT Hyderabad curricula. I don't know whether you are aware or not. They talk of fractional credit system.
Yes, I'm aware.
Right.
Professor Uday Desai.
Uday Desai, yeah.
Yes.
So in fact, I visited IIT Hyderabad just to see how things are happening there, right? And I was very, very fascinated, right? So what has been done? So I have implemented that curricula here at Munjal University. Again, keeping in mind the students. Each segment has been divided into each semester has been divided into 6 segments. And
Okay.
each segment is half a credit.
Okay.
Segment. So now my courses may vary from half credit to 3 credit courses.
Right.
So if a course where a disciplinary course where a depth has to be given can be a 3 credit course. But if I have to give a breadth of some subject, I can have 1 credit, 1.5 credit or 2 credit courses, right? So that gives me a lot of flexibility in juggling with the credits of different courses and sticking to 150, 160 credit kind of requirements of a 4-year engineering degree program, for example.
Sure.
Now, this is the curricula part, but then the delivery part also. Here again, if I want to bring in some industry experts in the classrooms, right, who are from different disciplines to teach that particular course, right? If it is a 2 credit course and half a credit, somebody wants to have a person coming from the industry, he will come and teach half credit, assess it and grade it, and I will include that into the grading system.
Got it.
So an environment has been created both in terms of designing of the courses and in terms of the delivery of the courses and assessment of the courses.
Got it.
So this gives me a lot of flexibility to bring in interdisciplinarity in a particular course, as well as teaching of that course with people coming from different disciplines. So
Correct.
that is a change which I have made here, and it will of course give me fruits, certainly. But again, coming back to Industry 4.0, I don't think we should be creating civil engineers or mechanical engineers these days. We should be creating engineers who have knowledge of, for example, Python, R, statistical methods, database systems, machine learning, security system, management, embedded system, robotics, I mean, your own area, they have to have. So
What would you call those, in our traditional thinking, Manoj, everybody will say, so what engineering is that? And what should we communicate? So what would you call that? Or what do you call that? Is it just engineering? Just get a B Tech?
I think that would be the right way to do it.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, eventually, I think, see, what has to happen is that we should admit students in a university, right?
Yeah.
And now let them study courses, give them a free timetable if it is possible.
Yeah.
And then pick up the courses. And if you have studied by the end of the program, majority of the courses in a certain discipline, you give them that discipline degree.
Right.
If I think eventually that has to happen, and in UK universities, I know in some of the universities it is happening. There are some models like that.
Yeah, I call it a design your own major, right?
Design your own major or build your own degree, I would say.
Build your own specialization.
Build your own specialization, build your own degree.
Yes.
But I think coming back to the student side, I think interdisciplinary learning to them allows them to see different perspectives, work in groups, and make this as their ultimate goal. And I think if that, for example, if you want to teach a course of, let's say, drones, and I know I have a faculty who in School of Law who has a PhD from Davis on drone laws. So he said that he had to study artificial intelligence. He had to study drones to really see how can we make laws on this for this drone data collection and drone technology and all. And he has written a book also on drone technology. He comes from a School of Law. Right. Now, when things are so interdisciplinary, if we allow the students to intermingle with the students of other discipline, to not only design of courses, delivery of courses, but in the classroom itself, if we have students coming from different disciplines and studying a course on
Yes.
say drone technology, that itself will create a different kind of environment. And students are, I think, when people say student quality is bad, I said no. Probably we don't know how we don't know that group of people, right?
Yeah.
So students with the right mindset would certainly want to study things from different disciplines.
Absolutely. I wanted to just allay some of the concerns which I see in some of the questions people are asking. There's a question by Arga Chakravarti, which is, it's a long comment and question, but I think one of the questions that is being asked in that question is, does multidisciplinarity or interdisciplinarity and the sort of blurring of boundaries is natural, but does it run the risk, education of that kind, does it run the risk of not meeting the demands of the market because it's not focused on a particular discipline? I think you addressed that in the beginning.
Yeah.
That the market itself is changing, but
market itself is changing. Yeah. So I mean, let's see. I know I'm taking examples of engineering only because I'm coming from that background. People, when they hire mechanical engineering students, they say they don't know anything about mechanical engineering because the requirement of mechanical engineering outside has completely changed.
Yeah. There's a lot of talk of multidisciplinarity, of course, in our national education policy, Manoj. And what do you think about that? Is that just a statement of intent? How do you see us doing this at a national scale?
Pramad, is it a new thing? National education policy, when they talk about multidisciplinary, is it a new thing which is they are talking of for the first time? If we go back to our history, right? Nalanda, was established in 5th century AD and survived till 1200 AD. And of course, it was devoted to Buddhist studies, but it also trained students in fine arts, medicine, mathematics, astronomy, politics, and the art of war, of course. And when you talk of Takshila, right, when a student used to enter at the age of 16 there, they would study Vedas and the 18 arts, which included skills such as archery, hunting, which in fact was taught to students of law school, medical school, and school of military science at that time. Now, it is there since ages, right? UGC, in 1857, we created this University of Mumbai, University of Madras, University of Calcutta, which largely, initially they were administrative examination centers kind of bodies, but eventually they became integrated campuses, BHUs, AMUs, PUs, Punjab University, Delhi University, all these are now integrated campuses, have multidisciplinary departments, right? It is there. So national education policy is not saying something which is not there. It was there, but maybe now there is a document at the government level, there is a document at the central level, which explicitly talks about it and gives you an example of what is the importance of multidisciplinary education in the country. So again, we as leaders, we know the importance of this. National education policy is now, I mean, a lot of halla gulla had been around this national education policy. If we have understood it, I mean, it talks about all those things which I just mentioned: governing body reforms, hiring of university leaders. I mean, talks of tight but light regulation. So if all these things will happen, automatically multidisciplinarity will happen. When they will relax these promotion rules, recruitment rules to that extent, I think then people will become open, people's mindset will change, and I think things are going to happen. So I have a I have great hope that at least people are reading this education policy with interest, and they're finding out ways to really implement this multidisciplinary in their educational institutions.
Yeah, thank you for that. I'm actually a big believer like you that multidisciplinarity and interdisciplinarity are actually very much part of the Indian ethos, and our cultural roots and our history. It's in our DNA of our education, and I think we've ended up creating artificial boundaries over the years, but the time has come to recognize that we already had interdisciplinarity or multidisciplinarity. We just need to chip away at the boundaries that we created or the silos that we have built over time. So I completely agree with you. I think we are down to the last 7-8 minutes, and I know that you are you have a commitment and a hard stop at 5 o'clock. So let me try and take some of the questions that people are asking. I think Latika Sharma is asking, an educated person actually reaches out into other disciplines. Can we teach intersectionality of disciplines? Is there a curriculum model for this? I think you did talk about that.
Yes, we can. And there are ways to figure that out.
Yeah. How do you link program outcomes in the case of multidisciplinary learning? Satbir Sehgal of Chandigarh University is asking. Any comments on that?
People have been talking about outcome-based education. I don't know whether people have really understood what do they mean by outcome-based education. All the universities and institutions are doing that as a kind of mechanical exercise, if I put it that way.
Yeah.
Right. If they are very clear about the learning outcomes, right, of a course which is interdisciplinary, all those program outcomes can be defined, course outcomes can be defined. And in fact, in an interdisciplinary program, you can certainly have some program specific outcomes, and in addition to your program outcomes, it can happen. And in an interdisciplinary course, if I can define my course outcomes in such a manner, it is possible. You just need to frame those sentences.
Absolutely. Interesting comment here from Professor R. Sudarshan. He's saying that I think disciplinary silos have resulted in narrow perspectives to such a degree that it is time to become anti-disciplinary. And that's a good comment. This term should enter the discourse with inter-trans multidisciplinary, says.
But we always have to think positive and make sure that people who have narrow mind, they become broad-minded.
Right. Dr. Shilpa Lambor is making the point that it is necessary to educate students, but also parents regarding this different kind of education. What are your views on that? Since you must be talking to parents a lot in the work that you do.
No, I think it is a very good question. And in fact, I'll start from our days only again, Pramad. So there used to be only medical or engineering, two choices given to the students, to us, that, okay, either go this way or that way, right? And unfortunately, the mindset of parent is still bogged into that. Whereas these current generation, right, they know what do they want to do. So I would suggest that parents need to listen to their children first. That what do they want?
I completely agree with you. Most of the people who come to Ashoka University, the children have convinced the parents. But
Correct. So if that happens, and that is happening.
Yeah.
And when we start giving that flexibility to the students, they would go back to their parents and then they will convince them. And current generation can really convince their parents with logics and reasonings. I have experienced that with my children.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Srinivasan Ramachandran made a very important observation, which is more an observation, and it's a very astute comment, that the classification of knowledge has really happened, and these disciplines got created because we needed to create blocks of knowledge so that we could educate at a large scale. And his point is that if you actually leave education and to an individual, or if you make education very individualized, then disciplinary boundaries will go. It's the corollary point to this point that everybody will then design their own discipline.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So he's highlighting this kind of conflict between education approaches that require you to create blocks of knowledge, discipline, so that you can get organized to spread education across the world. Whereas if you look at the problems of the world and individual needs and expectations, then actually interdisciplinarity or multidisciplinarity is built in. And I think that's a very astute
Interesting comment. Yeah.
Yes. I don't know if you had any closing comments. We are down to the last 2 minutes. So any final words around this whole topic of interdisciplinary learning? I think a lot of people here, Manoj, maybe you can touch on that, and we may not have a chance to cover all the disciplines. I had hoped that you could give us some more examples. But if you are in medicine or liberal arts or management or engineering or physical education, how do you start? What advice would you give our listeners on how do you get started with this? And I think that will be a good first step to leave them with, because a lot of people are keen to take a step in that direction.
So again, Pramad, when we get into any discipline, when we say, for example, medical sciences, right? Now, medical science itself has completely changed when we are talking of robotic surgery and when we are talking of remote surgery. So do you think medical science is just a medical science, or it is a technology and medical science? So now artificial intelligence in healthcare, right? Machine learning in healthcare, it's all data science, right? Now, if in medical education, if I am not covering these technological advancements, when we are talking of robotic surgery, when we are talking of remote surgery, when we are talking of huge data, when doctors will become virtual, don't you think that our doctors, the medical practitioners whom we are producing from these medical colleges, they get to know, they have to know all these things.
Yes.
They know, they have to. So it's just what is required in today's context that will make, I think, my life easier, and then start working from there.
Thank you, Manoj. I think that's a great point to end on. And I think Vijay Bhaktuni is also mentioning that, we have to change the mindset to saying, what do our students need to learn? What do they want to learn? And if you use that as a benchmark to define what you're doing, then that's the right place to start, right?
Yeah.
What is the world need? What do our students want to learn? And then work backwards from that. And yes, there are a lot of resistance from faculty. There are lots of bureaucratic structures. There's lots of curriculums that will need to be changed and all that. But I think we went through a lot of that. Thank you so much, Manoj, for making the time.
So Pramad, last comment you said. So we have been talking about it, but now we have to have universities promoting and practicing multi and interdisciplinary learning. And let us hope that recommendations of this national education policy are taken seriously by all stakeholders. I'm saying regulators, officials, university leaders, faculty, and students. Only then a change will happen. But I'm confident that a change will happen.
Thank you so much, Manoj. I think this was a great masterclass in interdisciplinary, multidisciplinary, transdisciplinary, and anti-disciplinary. We coined a new word thanks to Professor Sudarshan. Thank you really very much. I really enjoyed this discussion. The 1 hour went by like that. And in fact, we could have spent much more time discussing this. Hopefully we'll get a chance to do that on at another time and on another forum. But thank you very much. And thank you everybody in the audience for joining us. It's great to have you all here today. Please join us again in 2 weeks from now on Campus Charcha. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Pramad. It was pleasure again talking to you. Thank you,
everybody. Please look after yourselves and your families, and mask and be isolated. This is a tough time for us as a country. Thank you so much. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.